Well, good evening, everybody. We're going to go ahead and get this webinar started for our spring 2023 webinar about nutrition and dietetics. I would like to introduce the team that will be part of this webinar tonight. I'm Jennifer Fortmiller, and I am the admissions and enrollment coach for K-State Online. So I work with a lot of the prospective students as they come in with initial questions about the nutrition and dietetics program at K-State. In addition, the people that we have joining us is Heidi Overrider. She's the director of the didactic program in dietetics, and she'll be giving you a lot of information about our dietetics program here at Kansas State University. We also have with us Carla Gerard, the advisor for the online dietetics students, as well as Jacob Fleming, another advisor for the online dietetics students. And lastly, Ashley Blake is joining us too. She's the online advisor for the nutrition and health students. So we wanted you to be able to see all the people that are involved with your pathway to becoming a dietitian or a nutritionist. And so we wanted you to meet them. And if you have questions, obviously this is the time to be able to ask them. So for tonight, we're planning about a 45 minute presentation. We're going to allow about 10 to 15 minutes for some questions that we can answer at the end. But at any point during this presentation, if you come up with a question, go ahead and type that in the Q&A box that you'll find at the bottom of the webinar screen. You'll be able to see that. That's kind of the best place to be able to put all of your comments in there or questions. If you'd like to raise your hand, feel free to do that as well, and we can try to figure out a way to communicate with you. But at this point, your cameras are turned off and you're not able to speak. But if you have a question at the end, we can certainly try to get to you. But if you don't mind, put them in the Q&A. We'll get started that way. We also have a couple polls that we want to launch and get to know you a little bit. So the first poll is, where are you from? And you may see this pop up on your screen, and you can type in, hopefully you can type in there the city and state where you're from, so we can kind of get a little feel for that. So I'll give you a little bit of time to type in where you're from. We do like to kind of see where everybody's at. We have students in all over the United States and in some foreign countries as well. So we like to kind of see where everybody is at. And then the next poll that we're going to launch, we'd like to know which degree path that you're interested in pursuing, whether it be the online dietetics program or the online nutrition and health degree. So we'll get that one launched here in a second too. And if you can just let us know which degree that you're interested in.
I just launched that, Jennifer. I was just waiting for the last respondent for the other question.
Oh, okay, perfect. Yeah, get a feel for what degree you're in. And if you're undecided, that's perfectly fine too. We're hopeful this webinar will help you make that decision as well. So. And then as a reminder, we are recording this webinar, so we will post it. It does take about 7 to 10 days to get it through our system and get it posted on the website. We'll be sending out a link to all the participants so that you can go back to this recording and be able to pick up tidbits if you happen to hear something but didn't get the full story. You can go back to the recording. And we'll also have it out there for other people who weren't able to attend tonight, that they'll be able to see the recording of this. So that's a little bit about our webinar tonight. And I guess at this point, we're going to go ahead and jump right in and get started. So I'm going to turn it over to Heidi Overrider, and she can take it from here. It's all yours, Heidi.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'm so happy to be here with my colleagues and all of our participants. And I'll tell you a little bit about the online programs that we offer here at K-State in nutrition. So when I think about, the participants that might attend this kind of webinar, my guess is that all of you are very passionate about food and healthy eating habits, and often the answer will come out, and I want to help people. And so you've come to the right place because we have multiple degrees for you to pick from, and it really depends on where you want to end up in your future career as to deciding between those two. So here's a picture of our online degrees. And certainly, College of Health and Human Sciences is where we are located in K-State. and we are the Department of Food, Nutrition, Dietetics, and Health. And then we, of course, partner with Global Campus, K-State Online, to offer our online degree programs. And we have these 4 online nutrition degrees. The PhD is not available online, but I do want to mention that we do have a PhD in nutrition. But it's these 3 that are offered in the online format: the BS in Human Nutrition, which you'll often hear called Health, Nutrition and Health, because it's an emphasis in nutrition and health. We have another emphasis area that is not offered in the online format: the BS in Dietetics, and then we do have a master's degree offered in the online format. So probably the reason you're here is because you're thinking which degree is the right one to pick between them. And so that's really what the purpose of tonight is. All the degrees are great and they all have reasons for being. We just need to help you pick out what will work best for you. So the 2 that I've highlighted are the 2 that would lead towards getting your RDN credential, the dietetics credential. Now, this is a little bit of a misnomer. You have to start getting our BS in dietetics first, because that's the first step in moving toward earning that credential. And we'll learn a little bit later that a master's degree is required, and certainly we do offer an online master's, so you can pair those together to be part of the process of earning your credential. But we also have that BS in Human Nutrition, Nutrition and Health emphasis. So it really depends on what your final career is, what you want that to look like. So the best way for me to describe it is to use this quote: all dietitians are nutritionists, but not all nutritionists are dietitians. So nutritionists is this group of people that from just calling themselves one, you can read a book over the weekend and call yourself a nutritionist. In a lot of states, that's legal to do, but dietitian is a subset. And so we're talking about people that go through a specific pathway to earn the RDN credential, just like a doctor earns their MD to become a physician, or a nurse earns their RN degree. We do have our BS in Human Nutrition degree, and that you could call yourself a nutritionist. And I'm going to have some slides to clarify that a little more next. But this quote is perfect. Dietitians are a subset of nutritionists. We're kind of specialized. So on this slide, you see your 2 options. So we could be the nutritionist, or I can be the dietitian. So a nutritionist, really the title, like I said, is not legally defined, whereas the RDN, or the dietitian title, is defined. It's legally defined. In most states, the law says that you can't call yourself a dietitian unless, so it has some legal definition to it. People that are nutritionists often end up in positions that are doing nutrition education. They're telling people how to eat right to prevent disease, which is a good thing. They might be involved in some research and things, but they really focus on normal, healthy eating. On the other side, we've got dietetics, and we certainly, as dietitians, which I've been a dietitian now for over 33 years, we do nutrition education, but one of our main focus that we do is what's called the nutrition care process, which is when you take an individual and we assess them, we do a nutrition diagnosis, we do an intervention, and then monitor that patient to make sure that everything goes well. And we focus on, our specialty is that disease management. So we really are brought in when a disease has been identified or diagnosed by a doctor, and then we come in to do the nutrition diagnosis part of things. But even bigger to that is the fact that only dietitians can be reimbursed by health insurance. So you can go see a nutritionist and pay them to help you learn healthy eating, but you can't claim that on your health insurance. But if you see a dietitian, you can. That's not always true, but it's coming and becoming that way in most states, that health insurance will cover seeing a dietitian. So now we're kind of back to, okay, so how am I supposed to pick? I can do the BS in Human Nutrition and become a nutritionist. I could, if you already have a bachelor's, you can get to our master's degree and call yourself a nutritionist. It's the one in the middle, BS in Dietetics, which is the pathway through K-State that you'll need to take to become the RDN credential. And so I'll talk more about that pathway over the next few slides. So when you're trying to decide between those 2 pathways, we're mainly talking the BS in Human Nutrition versus the BS in Dietetics. is I want you to think about what you want your work setting and daily responsibilities to look like. You know, what is your dream job that you're trying to get toward? And I also want you to think about what are the academic requirements, because they are different between the 2 degrees. And I think that's probably what will help you make your decisions to which degree is right for you. So on this slide, you see a variety of work settings. Both nutritionists and dietitians can work in these settings. It depends on the position you're trying to get. And so it's the daily responsibilities that differ between a nutritionist and a dietitian. So in a hospital, they could have nutritionists that come in and do nutrition education, but it's the dietitian that's going to do the diagnosis and really give the diet prescription to that patient to help them manage their disease states. And again, I just want to remind you that it's only dietitians that can do disease management. So nutritionists really should not be giving advice to somebody with high blood pressure or high cholesterol, because that's disease management. And you really can get yourself into some legal trouble if things go wrong. So that's the big difference between nutritionist and dietitian. But the work settings can be similar. Now, I've just put up some examples on the slide. So for the BS in Nutrition and Health, it's really BS in Human Nutrition, but nutrition health emphasis. Those people can find positions in local health departments. They're doing community campaigns that might be teaching about eating low sodium to control blood pressure, but you're just teaching. You're doing the teaching part, you're not doing the diagnosing part. They get hired by food manufacturers to develop new food products. They work for nonprofit organizations. They help in research projects. And then certainly people can use that bachelor's degree to go on to the master's. And so they might go on and get a master's in public health, or they get a nursing, go into nursing, or go on to OT or PT school and those kind of things. On the other hand, the BS in dietetics, the one that leads to becoming a dietitian, we have jobs all over the place. When my students come in, when they first start the program, they say, "Oh, I thought all dietitians worked in the hospital." No, we're all over the place. So we do clinical things in hospitals and long-term care, but we also have management positions in the hospital, in clinics, in food service organizations, in food companies. We're in the community area. We're doing WIC, which is Women, Infants, and Children. You may have heard of that federal program. We work as retail dietitians in grocery stores and supermarkets, and we can have a private practice. And I'd say that a lot of my students come in, they look at that, and then they look at one of the specialties, which is sports nutrition. I think that's what I hear the most recently, is they want a private practice, they want to go into sports dietetics, or they want to do eating disorders. And so certainly that would require the BS in dietetics for any of those things. So I also mentioned that you got to think about the academic requirements. So on this slide, you see some things in the first column, and then you see the answers for the BS in Human Nutrition in the middle, and you see the BS in dietetics in the far right column. And so let's just look up here. Here's the minimum GPA required. So it means you can start here and you start taking classes, but to graduate with the degree, you must end up with a 2.0 overall to graduate with the BS in Human Nutrition. Whereas for the BS in Dietetics, you have to have a 3.0 overall to graduate. When we look at specific courses, so the second row is the science courses and the professional courses, you can get a C in those in the nutrition and health degree, and for dietetics, you have to get a B in those classes. Then you'll notice that for the BS in Nutrition, these are, I have NA for non-applicable. So that's because if you want to earn the RDN credential, there's some steps you're going to have to do after you finish your BS in Dietetics with us. So this talks about that. So here's this middle row, and it says 1,000 hours of supervised practice. That's the hands-on. You'll hear nurses talk about doing their clinicals. You'll hear medical students doing their residency. So it's kind of the dietitian version of those two things. So it's 1,000 hours of hands-on. You're working alongside a dietitian. You're practicing being a dietitian, and that costs some money. So the average cost of the supervised practice program is somewhere between $8,000 and $10,000. So yes, you do pay for that, but I do want you to know that there are some of those supervised practice programs that are no cost. Now that said, we're right at the cusp of when people will need to get a master's to take the RDN exam, and certainly that's not going to come for free. You're going to have to pay for that graduate degree, certainly. So I just want people to know up front that even though once you finish your BS in dietetics, you still have that supervised practice and the getting your master's degree part to finish before you take the RDN exam. The good news is there's tons of programs to pick from. So once you finish at K-State, my program helps you apply to and go to that next step. So this kind of just reviews what it takes to get that RDN credential. So you'll see there's the gray circle that says Ascend accredited coursework. So Ascend is the organization that accredits dietetics programs. So our BS in dietetics is Ascend accredited. So that's our BS in dietetics, that's the gray circle. We're providing you with the Ascend accredited coursework. And oh, I knew I had some squares to put up. Then you're going to go on after you're done at K-State and get your supervised practice done. And for most of you, that'll be combined with a master's degree. And then you can take the exam. That's how you earn your RDN credential. So after you earn your degree, I haven't talked much about the BS in human nutrition, but I will in a little bit more. But right now, I just want to separate out that you can, right after you finish your BS in human nutrition, you can go out there and get your job. You're ready to go, you're employable. You can go on to a graduate program if you wanted. But you got to remember, if you're getting the BS in dietetics, there's a next step. And that next step would be doing this supervised practice. We used to call them all internships. We're trying to use the word supervised practice instead. So think when you're looking up dietetics things, kind of use these two words interchangeably. So you do your supervised practice, and you guys, because of when you're starting this process, will have to also have your master's degree. So dietetic programs are becoming that they are combined. So you apply to this one program, and it includes both the master's and the supervised practice. And it comes out with about 1,000 hours of face-to-face work practicing as a dietitian in that program. The other thing that you can do with the BS in dietetics is you're immediately eligible to take what's called the NDTR exam. So there's actually two different dietetics credentials. There's the RDN, the Registered Dietitian Nutritionist, and there's the NDTR, which is Nutrition Dietetics Technician Registered. So you do our BS in dietetics, you're immediately able to take that NDTR exam, and you have your credential. There's no supervised practice involved. You're ready to go. You can get a job with that NDTR credential, or you can go on to the supervised practice because you want to earn that RDN credential. So this is highlighting that we're right. I keep mentioning that we're right at the cusp of change. So before 2024, you don't have to have a master's to be eligible to take the RDN exam. Starting on January 1, 2024, you do. So you all will be part of the cohort that will need that master's degree. So what you see right there is the circles I showed you earlier, that this is what you need today. If you're going to be eligible to take the exam today, this is what you would need, is that bachelor's degree, and then of course the supervised practice, and then take that exam. Well, starting in 2024, it's all the same. It's just that we're saying, but you also have to get a master's degree. So sometimes the Ascend accredited coursework comes in the master's degree, but how you'll do it through K-State so that you can take advantage of our online option is that you take the Ascend accredited coursework in your BS in dietetics, and then you will apply to supervised practice that includes the master's. So this little master square will really be part of this second circle for most of you. And the slide deck, I think they give you a copy of the slide deck, and there are some links that if you want to learn more about what's going on with that, you can do that. That should be a live link. So this, I've used this slide deck for a while, and I'm probably going to stop and take this out because we used to have some people that could get in under the wire, but you would have to finish your internship, your supervised practice by December 23 to be able to take the RDN exam without a master's. So it's highly unlikely that my listeners tonight will fall into that group to be able to do that. So you might as well just, if you wanted to become a dietitian, realize you're going to have to do the master's degree. Okay, so that's where I'm talking about pathways to earning that RDN credential that include that master's degree. So these are going to be your options. So we have a BS in dietetics, and then you will apply to that master's degree, but we call it an MSDI. So the DI stands for dietetic internship. And so you would have that combined together. So you're basically doing a bachelor's with K-State, and you're applying to a grad school that includes the supervised practice. We do have an accelerated degree program called the BSMS Accelerated Option. And that would mean if you're able to do that, you can't have a previous bachelor's. So if you're coming here to get a second bachelor's, you wouldn't be eligible for this. But if this is your first bachelor's with K-State, what that means is you would do both your bachelor's and master's with us. They're both online degrees, and 9 credit hours would count towards both degrees. So a master's degree is typically 30 credit hours. And so that's really a third of your master's is going to be done from courses you take as an undergraduate. So it kind of it saves you time and money is what I'm saying. So that's an option. And so there will be internships that are what we call standalone internships, because you will already have your master's through K-State. So now you just need to go get the supervised practice. There also are some people, if you already had a master's degree, you can come get our BS in dietetics and then immediately be eligible to apply to internship programs because you already have your master's. Finally, there is one additional way to think about it. So you can get the BS in dietetics through us, and then there are some what are called Ascend accredited graduate programs, and that would include additional Ascend accredited coursework, but it also includes that master's. So this will be a little confusing, I'm sure, right now, but we help students work through this and figure out which program pathway is the best for them. But if you're wanting to become a dietitian using our online dietetics program, you need to earn your BS in dietetics first. And while you're working on that, we will help guide you through how to pick out what your next step is going to be. Now, I don't want to forget my nutrition and health students because they're just as important. I always want everyone to know that, with all the diabetes and weight really pandemics that we have going on, we need all hands on deck to get healthy nutrition out there. So we need both nutritionists and dietitians. And so both degrees are wonderful. It again comes down to what setting you want to work in, what particular job you want to have. And also you got to think about those academic requirements, because if you're not able to get the B or better in the sciences, then that's really not the path for you moving forward. So the BS in Nutrition Health, as I said, it's really perfect for people who maybe want to go on to a different health career like nursing or getting an MPH. I have PAs, another option, physician assistants, occupational therapists, a dentist. So the BS in Human Nutrition and Health really has some important things you could go do, but you could also, just with that degree, work as a public health nutritionist, work in the cooperative extension. So there's K-State Research and Extension, so you can get jobs there. Nutritionists are working in mass media and helping a food-related industry promote their products. So lots of ways you could use the BS in Nutrition Health degree. Now, I still want to come back to this thought. How do you pick which one's the right way? So on this slide, and again, the slide deck that will give you access to, you can click on the links, is I suggest you go out and look for a job. Because when you go look for the job, you'll see what the requirements are. So if you're like, ooh, that's the job I want, if in the job description it says you must have your RDN credential, that's going to be your answer. Oh, if that's my ideal job, they're going to require the RDN credential, I'd better go get that credential. On the other side, if I find nutrition jobs, these are the ones I like, and they don't require the RDN credential, then you could do the BS in human nutrition or nutrition and health, and that would be just fine for you. I will say that there will be more job opportunities available with the RDN credential, simply because that opens up all of those one-on-one clinical using health insurance reimbursement positions that are out there. So it does open more doors, but you will have employment opportunities no matter which path you take. All right, so I want to answer the frequently asked questions that we often get from these webinars. One is, can I do the entire degree online? And the answer is yes. There's my yes. We, beginning in the fall of 23, so this fall, we are considering adding microbiology. We're in the last steps of getting that change approved. And so it's likely that it's going to be approved. And so you will be required to take microbiology. K-State does not offer microbiology in the online format. However, we have articulation agreements with Barton Community College and some other community colleges that do offer microbiology online. And so there is a way for you to do the entire degree online. It's just that one class will have to go through a different school. Or you could take that in a local community college where you are, or university where you are, take it in an in-person setting and then just transfer it into K-State. Either would work. The next question is, why is an overall 3.0 GPA required for the BS in Dietetics? Well, this is why. Okay, so I said that you finish your BS in Dietetics with us and then you apply to supervised practice programs. And we look at something called match rate. So it's the number of our students when they apply to supervised practice, how many of them get matched with an internship, get accepted into that next grad school step of the process. The national average of match rates from the DPD, which is what my program is called, the Didactic Program in Dietetics. The typical match rate across the nation is like in the 60s to 70%. We are consistently, our students are matched in the 92 to 100%. In fact, the last 3 cycles have been at 100%. So our students do very well. And part of that is because we force you to get that 3.0 overall GPA, because it is a competitive process to get into a supervised practice program. Just like it's a competitive process to get into medical school, it's a competitive process to get into a supervised practice program. Here's another question. Is there a mid-curriculum application required? Now, mid-curriculum, that means I take some of my classes for the BS in Dietetics, and then you're telling me I have to apply something to something in the middle? Well, gosh, yes, you are. But I want you to think about something. When you graduate with the BS in Dietetics, you have to apply to those supervised practice programs. So in essence, having you go through an application process mid-curriculum is helping you practice that skill. And so we put you through a very similar process that you'll go through when you apply to internships. And I think that's yet again another reason why our match rate is so high, is because we work with you from the time you get accepted into the DPD officially and help you hone your skills so that when you apply to your supervised practice, you have a high chance of getting matched. K-State DPD grads are in high demand. People do like our graduates. So to graduate with the BS in Dietetics, we do ask you to have a 3.0 overall GPA and to get a B or better in all the sciences and the professional courses. So then I get the question, well, what do I do if my GPA is low right now? Maybe you had a previous bachelor's degree, maybe you took some coursework, but didn't get a full degree, and my GPA from those previous courses is low. So that's what I want to talk about now. You really want to confirm that you'll be able to raise that to the 3.0 level by the time you graduate, because you have to have that to graduate with the BS in Dietetics. And so we look at where you are now and can I get you to the 3.0 by the time you're done? And so there's a calculator you can use to look at what kind of grades would I have to get in all of the DPD courses I'm going to take in the BS in Dietetics. And that's the link you see on the slide. I made some pre-made some slides to show you an example of how this would look. So I go into that calculator, and again, I've got the URL for the calculator up at the top. And this particular student, and I did put on the slide, our BS in Dietetics is 120 credit hours. We do not do pluses and minuses. Anyway, this student's coming into K-State and they have taken 60 credit hours, which is the typical amount done at if you're doing a 2-year community college. And so they're coming in with community credits from community college, and they enter, your GPA there was 2.5. And you're saying, can I get that 2.5 up to 3.0? So you enter your current GPA from those courses you're transferring in, you enter your desired GPA, you're saying, I want to get it up to 3.0, and then you're going to hit the calculate button. And this is the results that that person would see. To achieve a 3.0, you would need to get 30 credit hours at K-State and get an A in those, all 30 of those credit hours. You would need to get an A- in 43 credit hours, and you would get a B+ in 101. Now, again, K-State does not use pluses and minuses, so you can think about how this might translate into similar numbers, but you can see how it will take more and more credit hours to raise up that GPA to get to that 3.0. We do have an opportunity for students to ask for a waiver of the 3.0 GPA if they can show through current courses they're taking that they're able to get the strong grades. And so there is a waiver available. Here's just another example of this calculator. So this person had a previous bachelor's degree. So again, our BS in dietetics is 120 credits, but their previous bachelor's had 130. So they're bringing in 130 credit hours. They had a 2.4 GPA through that other bachelor's degree. And then they want to get a 3.0 so they can graduate with our BS in dietetics. And so they click the calculate button, and you can see that, wow, it's going to take a considerable amount of hours to raise it to a 3.0. So you can work with Jennifer and the other global campus advisors at looking at where your situation is on the credits you're bringing in and what that would look like to be eligible to do the BS in dietetics. So this is reminding, I remember what I was going to talk about here. So hopefully this presentation has kind of given you an idea of which degree might be best for you. And I want to remind you that really it's think about what your long-term dream job is, and then think about if that job would require the RDN credential. And if you do need to have that RDN credential, which is Registered Dietitian Nutritionist, then you'll have to go the BS in Dietetics route. If you don't need that credential in your dream job, then you could go the BS in Human Nutrition, which has an emphasis of nutrition and health. You could go that route. And I do want to remind you that the BS in Dietetics, it is the first step on the pathway to that RDN, and it's the only step you have to do if you want to earn that NDTR credential. So that's all I have to add, and I'm going to send it back over to Jennifer and the group, and I think they're going to ask some questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi, for that great presentation. At this point in time, we are open for questions. If you want to type them in the Q&A box down at the bottom, that would be great. I think we've had a question come in at this point. Maybe, yeah, we can take some ideas there too. If you would like to raise your hand and would like to speak, we can certainly let you do that too. We've got a group here that I think we could allow all of that to happen. So if you'd like to raise your hand and speak and ask a question, you're more than welcome to do that as well. Of course, if you need more information, feel free to email us. Email us at online@ksu.edu. We'll put that in the chat box as well. You will be getting a copy of all of this so you can see it later, but if you need something immediately, I pop that into the box right there. If you want to go on to the next slide, we'll talk about a few things. Again, be thinking of some questions. We'll answer them here in a second. But next steps, things that you need to be thinking about next. If you're ready to apply, we'd love to help get you started. We do have some deadline dates that are coming up. The priority deadline dates for starting in the summer would be April 1. If you're looking to start in August for the fall semester, that deadline date is going to be June 1. And if you want to start for next spring, that priority deadline date is November 1. When you apply, you need to fill out the application. You'll have to pay an application fee of $40 for a domestic student or $80 for an international student. And then you would also need to have all of your previous transcripts sent from all of the institutions that you have ever attended. So we would need official transcripts sent in. You would go to those school websites, request those transcripts being sent to K-State. Once everything is in, then we can review that application and make an admissions decision. So that's kind of how that process works. Once you do get admitted to K-State, depending on the time of the year, if you're admitted right now for summer or fall, it's probably going to be about 3 weeks before you'll be matriculated, and an advisor, one of these three individuals on this call or webinar tonight, will be able to reach out to you. But you've got plenty of time to work with them. Enrollment will start at the end of March, first part of April. So we've got time, but I would encourage you, if you're thinking about applying, let's do that early so that you can have the best chance at getting an enrollment date and getting the classes that you need. And the advisors can talk a little bit more about that as well. And then other future webinars coming up. We do have a transfer webinar that will be planned later on in the year. If you've got specific questions about how to transfer previous credit to K-State for this degree or any degree. As a reminder, it is being recorded, so we'll get that sent out, but it does take us 7 to 10 days before we can get that link out in an email to you. Sorry for that delay, but that's kind of what we're up against. So yeah, here's all of the people. These are your great experts in the room that can help answer questions. So put some in the chat box, and I think we've seen a couple. Any come through that you guys want to answer out loud?
Yeah, I have one question here. Is the program flexible? It kind of depends on what you mean by flexible. If you mean, can you take one class at a time and take quite a few years to finish? Yes, you can. If you want to take multiple classes, take a full load of every semester, you can do that. We do have to make sure classes are taken in a particular sequence. Certain classes are prerequisites for certain others. You can't jump into a higher level nutrition class without basic nutrition and some of those sciences. If I didn't answer the question, what you meant about being flexible, feel free to ask the question again, be a little more specific, or raise your hand.
Carla?
Yes, Heidi.
I'm also wondering, when they said flexible, like I said, all the classes will be online. The majority of the classes, the online classes, are taught in what I call the asynchronous format, meaning, you can take it'll be recorded lectures and those kind of things, and you can watch those at 2 o'clock in the morning if you want. So if that's the kind of flexibility you were thinking about, the majority of the classes will be in that asynchronous format, meaning do it whenever it's convenient for you. Obviously be due dates for assignments and those kind of things. There are a few of our classes, and I don't even know that I have a true list of them, but where the instructor will ask you to sign on at a particular time. So maybe that they record their lectures, but then you come in kind of as a recitation, kind of pull the group together and talk over some things and get some feedback between the students. So there will be some synchronous requirements, but I think most of those are noted in the catalog as you enroll in classes.
Okay, another question. I think maybe Jennifer would want to start with this answer. Wanting to know if the student should start the application process first or have transcripts evaluated first.
The best way to get that official transcript evaluation is that you need to apply, fill out the application, pay the application fee, and then have all your transcripts sent in for that evaluation. So that would be the order of the steps that you should take. So apply. When you apply, you get your name in the system. Then as you're contacting your previous institutions, they're all sending in transcripts at different times, but you'll have an application and a name on file that will be able to match your transcripts with that application. If by chance you happen to have a different last name that your transcripts were under, make sure you put that on your application too, so that everything can match up. But yeah, once that kind of all happens at the same time, apply, pay the application fee, have all your transcripts come in. Once they're in, the admission decision will take place, and then all of those courses will be evaluated to see how they apply to the K-State degree. So, and then you'd also start working with your advisors at that point, and they would help you fine tune those courses. If there's something that maybe you took and looks similar to something at K-State, we can review that in a little more detail with a few more human eyes on it. So if you have a class that you're questioning that, I think I took that already, how come it didn't count? Then that's when we'll put some human eyes on it and see what we can do to see how that's going to work. May require you getting a syllabus from when you took that class. So requesting the syllabus so that we can take a look at to see if it covered the same concepts that our K-State class covered. So all of that kind of all happens about the same time, but that would be the tentative order that you ought to follow.
Okay, next question.
Jennifer, I was just thinking to add to that, and maybe Jennifer or Carla could do this. We do have a transfer equivalency tool on our website. So if you have taken a few classes, you can go in there and enter them into the tool and look and see if it's already been evaluated and we already know that it would transfer in equivalent to one of our classes.
I posted that link in the chat when you were talking about maybe taking microbiology before starting at K-State. I posted a message saying, please check to make sure it would be equivalent to our biology 455 before taking it. Okay, Heidi, here's a question that I think you would be best to answer. What does this mean? Dietetics students must apply and be admitted to the DPD midway through the curriculum to be eligible to graduate with a bachelor's in dietetics. This application process prepares students for the application to supervised practice programs that occurs in the last semester of coursework.
So that was on the slide where I mentioned, it was in the frequently asked questions when I said, yes, there's a mid-curriculum application. So you are admitted to K-State, you are a dietetics major with us, and then after you've taken certain lower level courses, you apply to the DPD, and DPD stands for Didactic Program in Dietetics. That is what is Ascend accredited, and that's what makes our BS in Dietetics Ascend accredited. And the acceptance rate into our DPD is like 96%. I mean, really the majority of people that apply get in. We use it for a couple of reasons. We have you do that application process to control our numbers, because to be in a Ascend accredited program, they don't want us becoming a diploma mill. They want us to keep our numbers down so that we can give you a quality experience and make sure you're ready to go on to the next steps to be a dietitian. And so we need to keep our numbers down. But we really have not ever come up against we can have 115 students at any one time, and we rarely come up to that top number. So it's not, space is not the issue. We are looking for, if we feel that that student has very, very, very little chance of making it into an internship, then we feel it's our duty to help highlight that to you early, so that you don't, get 3 years into this taking very expensive tuition courses and then can't go on to the next step. So see that application as a way that we're helping you make sure that you will be successful as you move on through. And we provide, after we do that application, whether you're accepted or not, and like I said, most students are, I meet with them one-on-one and we go over your application materials, because you make a resume and you make a personal statement, and think of it as that's practice, because that's what you're going to do when you apply to supervised practice, that once you're done with your BS in dietetics. And it's kind of funny because the students, we do applications twice a year, and you submit a resume, a personal statement, you calculate some GPAs, and then you have a 15-minute interview with 2 faculty members. And I know students, they get stressed out about that, but always, almost every single time, the student then comes back later and goes, thank you for doing that, because that gets you ready to apply to supervised practice. I've talked with some students from other institutions, DPD programs, that didn't do that. And so when it came time to apply to supervised practice, they were sort of like, oh, go apply. And they just kind of, fly the nest, try to get into an internship. We hold your hand. Now you have to do the work, but we're there for you. My motto is, your success is my success. So I want you to get matched. I'm super, super proud that we're at basically 100% match rate. So I don't want to break my streak. So I'm going to be right there with you to make sure that you do well. So don't let it scare you, but you do want to keep that in mind, that, we do have a way that we're looking for people who aren't putting their effort into it, so that they don't waste their time or even take up a spot for somebody who would put their effort into it.
Okay, next question I think would also be for you, Heidi. If you want to work with women who have food issues from a therapeutic perspective, do you recommend the BS in dietetics or the BS in human nutrition?
If you're talking kind of on the disordered eating, the scale of disordered eating, I would say the RDN credential. Because anytime you're really, and eating disorders is kind of a specialized little slice of dietetics. Very rarely do you work with just a dietitian alone when you have eating, disordered eating. because if it's severe enough, we need to have the psychologist there. We often will have other types of therapists there along with the dietitian, and we work together as a team to work you through that process. So yeah, I'd lean toward the credential. And I often tell prospective students that come to campus and their parents are asking me, oh, which way should I go? If you can hack the sciences, I hate to put it that way, but if you can get through the sciences and get a B or better, it would be worth it to get the RDN credential, because it will open more doors for you.
Okay, another one, I don't know, it's a little vague. Can you become a director of a nutritional company with this degree? But the question does not say which degree they're referring to.
So my answer to that one is, anybody can be a CEO of something. If they create the business themselves, they can be a CEO. There are CEOs that don't have a degree at all. So yes, but if you want to be a food service director of a very large kitchen in a 800-bed hospital, you need your RDN credential. You can probably get that position with what's called a CDM, but more than likely it's going to be a dietitian that's in those very large operations that are feeding patients and residential people. You could move up certainly in a food company with the nutrition health degree, because again, they're just wanting that person in a food company, they're just wanting that person to understand human nutrition and to provide input into the development of a food product. Those people are not diagnosing individuals. They're not giving diet prescriptions. And so certainly the BS in nutrition and health would be a fine option. But I always fall back on, if you can hack the sciences, then go the RDN route. Although now that you have to have the master's, maybe you don't want to spend that much time in school. So then the BS in nutrition health would certainly be a way to, in a 4-year degree, get into a nutrition education focused position without having to do the supervised practice.
Okay, there are no more questions posted. If anyone has any more questions, please feel free to post them. If you want to raise your hand and actually speak, we can allow you to do that as well. Oh, we have someone. Okay, Amber, let's see if this worked.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, I work for a social service agency that deals with adults that have intellectual and physical disabilities, and like a combination thereof. And so there is a registered dietitian that works here. And so I deal with some clients that do have dietary issues. They have, very high blood pressure, or high cholesterol issues, or thyroid issues, quite a bit of diabetics. And I'm wondering, with the time that I've worked here, would I be able to use that in any type of way, I guess, from in terms of the experiences and the stuff that I have been taught, and having to follow strict meal plans and carb counts and all that kind of stuff? Would I be able to use any of that experience towards my degree?
So the answer to that is, for neither of our bachelor's degrees do we do what's called credit for prior learning. So we do not have a policy to where we'd say, oh, you don't have to take the food production class because you've got 8 years experience in that. We don't have that option. So you'll have to do the classes that are required in each of those degrees. However, when you apply to the DPD mid-curriculum, if you go the RDN route, or when you apply to internships, they want students to have what we call dietetic related experience. And what you just described, your job is perfect. So you are a student who already has that piece in the bag, and you'd be ready to go to apply to the DPD and to supervised practice. There are some supervised practice programs that what they will do is they will have credit for prior learning. And so in a dietetic, in that supervised practice, you'll have this many hours you'll spend in clinical, this many hours you'll spend in a community setting, and this many hours in food service. And so it's likely that some of your hours from that job might be used to shorten the rotation time in one of those 3 buckets of time. So you could take the 1,000 hours, maybe it goes down to 800 because they're going to count, let you shorten your internship a little bit. So yes, it can count. But as far as covering K-State coursework, that we don't have a policy for that. And I did want to throw out there, and it's kind of related to what Amber's bringing up. I was just talking about how, I remember how I worded it before, but you can do, if you want to get the dietetics credential, but you really don't want to go on for a master's degree, you can get our BS in dietetics, immediately take that NDTR credential exam. And then you don't have to do a master's, you don't have to do supervised practice. And it's possible, Amber, that, that NDTR would allow you to take on more detailed roles with your own patients there. You keep that job and you're able to take on more because of that NDTR credential. So that's another option to think about.
Another question. So I would be able to do the NDTR after I complete the BS in dietetics, correct?
It takes us about 6 weeks to get the paperwork done that I have to submit to make you eligible for the exam. So it's not like you could graduate and take it the next day.
Okay.
Plus you probably want to stop and study a little bit for it. But yeah, you could within two months for sure of graduation, you could be on the sign up to get that test taken and have that credential. Yep.
Okay. One more quick question.
Sure.
One more quick question. What were the 3, if you could repeat the 3 buckets, I'm assuming, of internships that you had just mentioned? You said clinical, right, community, and what was the third one?
Management.
Okay.
And generally, historically, the hours you spend in the management is generally like with a K through 12 kitchen feeding students, or a dining center, or a hospital kitchen that's serving their patients. But management isn't just food service. Management is also managing the blood pressure campaign that the community is doing. It's managing other dietitians. So it's really management skills in a general sense, HR and all those kind of things, budgeting and all those kind of things. It's just that a lot of internships fulfill that bucket through a food service environment.
Okay. Thank you.
And Amber, Jennifer can pass on my email. It may have been on one of the slides. She can type it in the chat. I don't do well multitasking, so I'll let somebody type my email in the chat for me. But I can certainly give you links to more information about the NDTR that goes directly to a site that just talks about the NDTR. So I can do that. And what I'll do is I'll make sure there's one to the RDN and one to the NDTR, and I'll get that to Jennifer and she can pass it along to you guys.
Thank you.
Anybody else have some questions? Feel free to raise your hand or type them in the Q&A box. We've had some great interaction tonight. It's been wonderful working with you all. Would love to answer any more questions that you have. Feel free to email us at online@ksu.edu, or I did put in Heidi's email address in there too. So you've got the direct link right there to the director of the DPD program at K-State. So yes, feel free to contact us. I see maybe one more question popped in. Oh, it was a thank you. Yes, you're welcome. Thank you guys for attending. I think at this point we're gonna sign off. Again, feel free to reach out and contact us, but it's been a pleasure working with you, and we can't wait to see your applications, or at least more questions come in about our program.